Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Area 51, the first episode of 2023. A bit late, but Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, folks.
So, what are we
What's
going
up,
to
man?
talk about in this episode, Sanjay?
Like we discussed in our previous episode, which almost seems like a lifetime away. This episode is more about, just a discussion of all sorts of immigration-related news that happened in and around Congress and the US. And maybe go into a little bit more details on some of them, depending upon, whatever time we have for the day, because it can probably go for like a 6 or 7 hour long episode if we just talk about all of it in a single thing. And I don't think anybody's going to listen to a 7 hour long podcast on that.
We'll lose our one listener.
Yeah. I mean, we might.
Well, that's some interesting tidbits that you learned from this episode. We definitely learned a lot when we started researching for this. And even though we've been following news like this for a while, some things that we found out, we were pretty surprised. So we hope you guys like it as well.
All right. So I think, I'm going to focus on like two of them today, and then we'll see like at least the two prominent ones that I feel require a lot more discussion. And that were pretty important bills as well, like in the last Congress. Well, the end of the story basically is that none of these bills and discussions passed, like none of them. And
No way.
and for anybody who follows this sort of immigration news, it's pretty hilarious, like, because this is the normal story. Like, I don't think the US has like had any serious immigration reform before the invention of the internet. Like seriously, like before 1991 or something. I think that was the last time some serious immigration reform happened. And we'll probably go into a lot of details about that during our discussion. But yeah, it's pretty sad to think of it that way.
So, what are the two biggest bills that actually would have made an impact to our lives if they were passed?
So there were two bills primarily. One was introduced in the Senate, and one was introduced in the House. The Senate bill was Senate Resolution 3721. It is also known as the Relief Act. And the House bill was House Resolution 3648, known as the Eagle Act. And I know, Rahul, you've been waiting to discuss about what these bill names stand for. So go ahead.
Okay, before we discuss it, I am very impressed with whoever came up with these names. Okay, fascinating acronyms, and they actually did a good job, dude. Like Relief Act, okay, resolving extended limbo for immigrant employees and families Act. Relief Act. Come on. Before we get into the detail, slow hand clap for the guy, for the girl who came up with this. Respect.
There's probably like an office that specifically does just this, like naming different bills. I mean, this is just related to immigration. There's tons of bills passed every year, right? So
I wonder if the same person from India comes here and helps out. We've got some cool names for missiles and acts and stuff, dude. I'm sure within a couple of years, with the number of Indians, we'll see the Agni Act. Asians getting no immigration act.
Oh my God. Okay, funny enough, so the Relief Act was introduced by Senator Richard Durbin. And he's one of the, I think, the leading figures in Congress for immigration-related stuff. And from what I've researched, I've found that one of his senior aides and top policy advisors is a descendant of Mahatma Gandhi.
Wait, what?
Like a direct descendant.
Why am I not surprised? I was just a couple of weeks ago, randomly I found that one of Gandhiji's great grandchildren was actually a Republican senator.
What?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. At least on both sides of the aisle.
So I'm like not surprised. I mean, I'm glad it's like to balance it out. This guy's on the Democrat side.
Oh, that's great. Wait, a Republican senator. Wait, is it Bobby Jindal? There aren't a
No,
lot
no,
of.
no. I think the surname is Gandhi itself. I don't know if it's in the if he's in the House or the Senate, but there's someone. He's Republican. I think it was. I don't remember which state, but I saw this. It was very interesting though. And I was like, "Whoa!" Now you're telling me this, and I was like, "Wow."
Wow. Okay, I need to look up on that.
He's got family in South Africa too, uh, doing some stuff with the government there. So it's like a global
Wow.
enterprise now.
At least he got his green card in probably less than a year. Since he was born in South Africa, if he did. Speaking of which, that is specifically what the Relief Act is about. And weird thing. So, for those who don't understand, how most immigration or specifically employment-related immigration works in the U.S., is that the U.S. has, I think, set an annual quota of what is it, like 140,000 green cards a year, I think, if I'm not mistaken, for employment based permanent residency applications that they will allow. And 7% of that goes to each country in the world or something like that. And funny enough, since there are only two countries that have extraordinary amount of population, and turns out they have a massive backlog because they can only put in so many people in a year. So what is it? So 7% will be like what, the equivalent of
I think
14,
9,000 visas or something.
9,000 or
Something like that.
10,000 green
Yeah.
cards a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is primarily India and China. Um, and the situation's gotten so bad that like we have probably close to 1.5 million immigrants stuck in this particular backlog who, and the weird thing is they have all the paperwork approved. It's and they've been legally living here for at least a decade. They've been paying their taxes and they have a life here, but they cannot get a green card because of this quota. And so the Relief Act is pretty much, in summary, it abolishes this country based quota system and increases the amount of total number of green cards for this particular category, that's employment based category. And actually the bill
Without
itself.
increasing the overall limit.
Oh, is it? Oh, I thought the Relief Act does increase the limit. But
No.
oh,
So
okay.
I didn't mention, I didn't find that listed. Uh, Based on the summary, like you said, removing the 7% cap for employment based visas, increasing the family cap from 7 to 15%. And then the other three are removing an offset, limiting visas for individuals from China, and then the annual cap for unmarried children of citizens is increased, and the formula for calculating the cap for unmarried children of residents is revised. But I do not see anything mentioned about the number of green cards being increased.
Oh yeah. You're right. And I think because when I was reading, like there was an increase in the number of cards, but the act included a clause which used that any unused green cards from previous years up until I think 1992 or something would be taken and used to level out all these people on the backlog,
Right,
and that way
right.
like this they can level it out and make everybody equal again,
It's pretty
because
funny
like
though. It mentioned equal. Like if you see a USCIS bulletin, just like you
uh-huh
said, like India and China singled out. There's actually two more countries that are singled out too. It's
that's
Mexico and
next year.
Philippines.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of Filipinos who immigrate to America, and I think I may be wrong here. Like I was seeing this chart the other day, the highest earning ethnicities in the United States, like Indian Americans come at the top, like our group of people, like, and that's like a median household income of like 110K or something like that. And the second, if I'm not mistaken, are Filipino Americans. So
I didn't know
it's,
that. I just found
yeah,
out when I was looking at that. And I was like, wow, I didn't know we had so many folks from Philippines that there's actually a backlog there. But
yeah. So,
just for everyone's information, every other country is collectively clubbed as ROW, which is called Rest of the World. So you guys can come apply for your green card, get it within a year or two, settle down, while folks from India, China will probably just die in queue waiting for their turn, So like the sequel to Brad Pitt's 12 Years a Slave is 24 Years a Slave, and it'll feature like three Indians running towards a green card.
Oh my god.
A bit harsh, but
It is. I mean, like, it's obviously we're not trying to compare to like slavery or anything of the sort, but it's it's unfair, and especially for a country and a system that's supposed to be designed to be meritocratic. They've not changed with times, and this is when, like, there's such a huge demand for the sort of skill set that a lot of folks from India bring, and just the amount of talent, like, they should be doing something serious about it. And yeah, the irony there is that, yeah, it didn't pass. Now, Rahul, in your digging, you found some interesting tidbits on how this whole charade of this bill coming to Congress and being stalled and finally not even being put on vote.
yeah, it's funny because the person who introduced the Relief Act, right? It's Richard Durbin, Dick Durbin. His little background about him: he's known as a party whip, which means he's the second most powerful person in that party. Right? That's what a whip means. On a side note, I wonder how he feels about not being promoted for 18 years. Right? Being number two for 18 years.
See, you know what? When you look at any of these politicians in the US who get elected, in the first couple of years, like, they'd have a salary, what is it, like 100, 200K or something a year,
Right.
and they'll have a net worth something similar. There's obviously exceptions. There's a few business folks or whatever. And then you see, like, their career, their net worth, and like 20 years later after they're in Congress, they've suddenly become millionaires and multimillionaires. And
Compound
I would,
interest.
yeah, I would think, like, I'd be happy at that. Like, yeah, fine. If I'm worth $20 million, like, I don't need to be the top dog. Like,
But yeah, I digress. But
okay,
everyone, when they see Dick Durbin, they're like, "Oh, he's a champion for immigration." He's like fought for us. Relief
uh-huh,
Act was introduced in 2019, died, introduced it again. Like someone who's not very well versed, when they look at it, I myself thought of it like that. But I was looking at it. You mentioned the Eagle Act, right?
uh-huh, uh-huh.
So the Eagle Act's predecessor, right, is called the Fairness for Skilled Immigrants Act.
Okay,
So what does that act do? It's essentially introduced in 2019. Unfortunately, it does not have a cool acronym. I don't think they spend enough time on that. But the main proposal of that bill is to eliminate the birth country reservation on employment based visas, so that we can prioritize immigrant petitions based on their application date and not nationality, which is what is happening in a lot of countries. The
I
bill
think
did not
most
have any
most
provisions
countries,
to
right? Like,
increase. I'm sorry, what?
pretty much any country other than the US, I think.
Pretty much, exactly. Right. This bill did not have any provisions to increase the annual limit of green cards, which I think is 1 million a year.
Okay, okay,
So this was introduced by Mike Lee and Zoe Lofgren. It was
okay.
introduced in the House, and I'm going to give you the timeline just to take you through it. Okay,
Yeah.
Feb 2nd, 2019, it was
Okay.
introduced in the House.
Okay.
July 10th, 2019, it passed the House with 365 votes.
Wow. Okay. So pretty strong majority.
Yes, and the people who oppose it, just 65.
Okay. Okay.
July 11th, the next day, it was introduced in the Senate, because that's a natural course, right? It's
Okay.
introduced in one place. It's if it's passed, it goes to the other, because
Okay.
it has to be unanimously passed for it to become a law.
Okay.
It was first blocked by Senator Rand Paul, who wanted to
Okay.
set aside 5,000 visas for nurses. Now, I'm sure you would have seen that there's a special
Category.
section for physical therapists and
Yep.
nurses.
Yep.
So it was introduced by Senator Rand Paul, and then within 2 months, they reached an agreement, and it was amended to include that provision.
Okay.
September 19th, it was again blocked by David Perdue, and Senator Lee worked with David Perdue, received his agreement, and it was
Okay.
resolved on September 25th.
Okay.
And to Senator Lee's, to his hard work in pushing it through, I'm actually very impressed, because he's gotten through these very quickly. He's like actually
Okay.
made an effort to knock it out pretty fast.
Okay. So wait, let me pause you for a bit. I'm going to give some clarity. Senator Mike Lee is a Republican from Utah, and Representative Zoe Lofgren is a Democrat from California. So just to give our audience a bit of understanding of where this is going to go.
Change the narrative a bit because based on the way I was talking, I'm sure everyone would have thought that Senator Lee was a Democrat.
I know, right?
Now, this is the funny part, right? September 25th, it's all resolved from David Perdue. Now, October 16th,
Okay.
2019,
Okay.
Richard Durbin introduced the Relief Act. But he introduces it one day before Lee presents it to the Senate for unanimous vote.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So October 17th, one day after Durbin introduces the Relief Act, Lee presents it, and there's one person who is blocking this. Guess who?
So I'm guessing that's Senator Richard Durbin.
Yup. Durbin blocks Lee's act on October 17th, and then a couple of weeks later, on October 30th, Durbin presents his Relief Act and asks for unanimous consent, but it's blocked by another senator, John Thune, on
Okay.
behalf of Lee. Lee's friend pretty much blocked it for Lee.
Oh wow.
Stalemate. They're just going around blocking into these bills.
Well,
Just
so
a heck of
one thing I'd say, like, so that this doesn't sound too biased in any way, is that this sort of stuff I think happens pretty regularly, where you have multiple senators bringing up bills that are very similar in nature, and then depending upon like sort of subclause or whatever it is who tries to push it out. But I think what's interesting here is that this is Senator Richard Durbin blocking something like this is for somebody who's been touting that they want immigration reform, whose agenda of getting elected to office was immigration reform. Like Mike Lee, I don't think he's got nothing to do with that. Like, I don't know where he suddenly decided, like, today I'm going to solve America's immigration crisis, and like actually gets a lot of folks invested in putting their votes to this bill, which is pretty crazy to think.
So back to the timeline. November 6th, Durbin gets another rejection when he asks for a vote, and he's actually asked to work with Lee. And
Okay.
Durbin's issue is like the act will not help immigration or reduce the queue. The problem is the number of green cards that have been assigned every year. So he's like, unless we actually increase the number of green cards,
Mm-hmm.
we're not actually making any progress. So now if Lee had agreed to increase the limit, I'm sure this could have been resolved.
Mm-hmm.
And now, fast forward to June 2020. It's been 7 months since that stalemate.
Okay.
Immigration Voice runs an ad on CNN. Now, for those who don't know, Immigration Voice is a very active group that is advocating immigration reforms for Indians. It's been for a while now. They've been very vocal. They've been instrumental in holding peaceful protests, in actually putting the word out on different platforms and gathering support. And I know that they have different platforms where they do this. Like the groups on Telegram, and where they have very passionate people and members who call their state representatives, who leave voicemails and emails to actually bring about a change. So that group runs an ad on CNN saying that how Durbin's hold is causing many issues. And it's been like I said earlier, it's been 7 months now. Again, on July, the heated discussion again. And Lee, this I found really funny. Lee apparently went to USCIS and asked if the
Okay.
changes being suggested by Durbin is feasible. Okay. And USCIS are like, these are not feasible and they would cause delays. Now, if USCIS, an organization who has come up with procedures designed to cause delays, tells you this, I think it's a problem, Finally, in August, Durbin agrees to compromise after a hold or a delay of 10 months, almost 10 months.
I mean, to give Durbin some credit, so this time period is like between this whole COVID crisis stuff. Like, so he puts this hold in October 2019. By March 2020, the world is like going through the pandemic, and so I guess like the first few months is all about like helping folks and getting things in order, the vaccine stuff and all that. So I mean, I'm not going to.
I know you're playing the devil's advocate, but it's still
Yeah.
not cool. Still not cool.
Hey, we need more viewers. Okay, we need the conservative folks as well as the the liberal progressive ones for the podcast.
But the story is not over yet. We had one more hurdle, right?
Oh,
We've got
okay,
a senator from Florida, Senator Scott, who
okay.
wants to carve out green cards based on people's language skills.
So you got to give TOEFL to get your permanent residency.
After another delay of 4 months on December 2nd, 2020, it is passed. December 3rd, Zoe Lofgren says that she's not happy with the text, but she's still going to try to push it. But it's too late by then because they've got to take this amended bill and go back to the House and get it passed again. On December 21st, when people are still like, can it be done? Can it not be done? Zoe is like, we will try again next year.
Oh my God.
So you're
And this is the
basically
end of the year,
something
like.
that passed the House, it passed the Senate, and it essentially could have done away with the long queues that we're doing right now. It passed both the institutions. But the session ended. Trump's presidency is done, and it was a new session coming in Jan. We were so close. We were so close to having won against the system, but we failed, and that sucks.
And Zoe Lofragan was an immigration lawyer based out of San Jose, California. And like she started her career as an immigration lawyer. So this is not somebody who, for what I was worth, like the US Constitution is huge and like there's so many provisions there. Immigration law is like huge itself. And so expecting senators and folks to understand nuances about, how something affects other people, and they have to look at all sides of it before they pass a law. It is difficult a task as it is, but this is somebody who built a career on that, and this was reasonable immigration reform that she was not comfortable passing. And so I mean that begs the question, well, why was that? Like, at least for me, it seems the most obvious thing is because this was pushed in a Republican Congress, where you had Donald Trump as president, Senate was majority with Republicans, and the House was the only place where the Democrats had a majority. And maybe they just didn't want to, I don't know, make it look like a talking point where, oh, the Republicans have done more for immigration than Democrats have. Or it could also be
Sounds
that
like
they didn't.
Game of Thrones politics going on.
Oh yeah, I mean it is always the case, right? Politics is that way.
But I'm
So
going to reiterate this once more. I could have had a green card by now if it was passed.
now I'm going to let our audience know, something cool. The emotion that you feel right now, that is how I feel, because I was following that news at that time when that happened. And no surprises, we went through an exactly similar thing in 2021 as well, or rather 2022. Exact same scenario played out with the House resolution, the Eagle Act, where this was introduced by Zoe Lofragan. God, I'm butchering her name. I'm very
So,
sorry if.
fun fact: Eagle Act is essentially the Fairness Act rebranded with a cool acronym.
Okay, so
It's,
there you
it's
go.
Zoe took that act, made a few changes to it, put in an acronym, and then introduced it into the Senate and the House on June 2nd, 2021. I think June is her favorite month because
Maybe
I'm seeing
that's
a
when she's.
pattern here.
I think she's like excited about her summer vacation, when Congress is out. And it's like, you know what? Let's give these peasants something to be happy about for the next few months and then take it all the way back by the end of the year. So she introduced this in June 2021. And this is, like Rahul mentioned, a very, very similar act to the Fairness Act. And the next movement on this act, I think, doesn't happen until what, October 2022?
It doesn't happen till November 2020.
November.
I have the numbers here. So
Okay.
you guys remember the numbers with which the previous act passed, right? It passed the House in 365 votes,
Yeah.
and there were like unanimous consent for the
At the
in the
Senate.
Senate, like one or two people blocked, right?
Yeah,
Now
no,
listen to
one
the numbers for this.
unanimous means all 100 senators, I think,
Yeah,
or
except
except
yeah, like
the.
once you remove the holes, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah.
Now listen to the
So
numbers for this. Okay, November 14th, the House is 83.
okay, wow, okay. So there's no way this is passing, like at least initially from the looks of it. This is after 1 year after it was introduced.
No, I think this was yes, correct. It's sad. I mean, it's essentially the same thing. I don't know what brought about such a drastic change in the senators, viewpoints towards this bill, because it's just been a couple of months since they threw out since the session ended. So logically you'd think that it's just a lack of time. Why do we need to debate the whole thing again? Let's just put it out and approve it and send it to the president to sign off. But unfortunately that's not what had happened.
And again, this thing goes down to the wire. But the crazy thing being is, you have the midterms that take place in November 2022. And then December is the lame duck session of Congress. The bill, the Eagle Act, is brought up for discussion in the House proceedings, which typically for any bill means it is the time when it's discussed between other House representatives before they decide to enact a vote on the bill. And now I think by the time they get to that point, it's already December 18th or something along those lines. And Senator Mike Lee from the Senate comes out with a statement that we have enough votes for unanimous consent for the Eagle Act to pass in the Senate if you bring it up to vote and bring it to us in a day or two. And he puts out an official statement like this. And then the bill never comes up for a vote in the House. Like it just dies. Like literally after being discussed. This is like saying like you decide to go take a shower. You're letting everybody know you go take a shower. You remove your clothes and then you walk out of the house.
That is a very interesting analogy. And I'm surprised this is the analogy that you thought of.
I couldn't think of anything else at such short notice. I mean, you have to take a bath, you need to be intentional about it, right? It's not like, oh, you know what, I'm in the bathroom, might as well take a bath and come.
I was going for a more of a sandwich analogy, but out of about.
Okay.
But let's talk about your analogy. But
So yeah.
for you, like how you were following the Relief Act, this was the
Uh-huh.
first time I was actually tracking the progress. Like every day, I would start my day by checking all the forums, by seeing if anything's on Twitter, if there's been any announcement. And I actually thought we had a shot. You know, I was like, okay, I was very excited. I was like, oh my god, any day my life could be changed. And then. As always, third week of December is like, hey guys, sorry about that. We'll try again next year, okay?
Oops, Santa's not coming to town this time. And so yeah, that's
And I saw the debate also. It's
oh, okay,
people's
okay.
their arguments against the act.
Okay.
Like for example, Chip from Texas,
Okay.
right? He had a minute to talk about this, okay,
Okay.
and he only speaks about the border. Like he did not mention. I think he saw Eagle and he thought it was like to protect and safeguard Americans or something, and he just started talking about the border, how we need more money there. I'm like, what are you talking about, and what are we discussing? What are we supposed to discuss? And forget the senators. If you went on Twitter and just saw what the tweets were against this. For some reason, there were like some hundreds of Iranian accounts of folks from Iran just
Uh-huh.
tweeting the fact that they hate this bill and this is going to destroy equality and everything like that. And there were so many accounts saying that apparently many Iranian bots were against this act. And I don't know from where that came, but I saw so many of those accounts just tweeting against the bill.
Yeah, I know the tweets you're talking about, and I did see them myself. Like, but I've like not been able to understand where it comes from.
Yeah, it just made no sense.
One thing is like there was, I think some security researcher put out a thread like a Google Docs that he shared where he shows and he tagged USCIS and DHS, Department of Homeland Security, to investigate some of the stuff where like he seemed to think like it could have been like some botnet that came out of the Iranian government. But as far as I know, like to clarify one thing, one of the bigger, I'd say, group of folks that would have their lives improved by the Eagle Act are Indians because they are the primary benefactors of this bill, like because they have been huge backlogs and stuff. And if you have to assume that it was the Iranian government or something like with these bots and stuff, Iran and India, as far as I understand, have a pretty good political relationship. It's not like they hate each other or something. I think India buys a ton of oil from Iran, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't understand where this is coming from. Like who's building out this stuff? Like who's putting it out there and why the thing? And it's basically it's very simple. This act is just about changing the system in a way that makes it first in first out. If you're the first to stand in the queue, you're going to be the first to get in the gun. It's not on the basis of where you come from, which if obviously it's like you're getting into a bus from school, you're not going to say, oh hey, you're African American or you're white, you get to go first or second or third or whatever it is. That's crazy, right? That's unimaginable today. But the remnants of that system still exist in US immigration, and a lot of folks don't want to change that status quo.
Yeah, and most of the hate or the tweets against this act said that, hey, what about the people who are already in the queue, or what about the who've been waiting for a couple of years? How are they affected, right? If you actually read the text, you will see that they've planned for a 9-year transition period to eliminate the per country limit. So they've got like a percentage of visas assigned for countries apart from India and China in like EB2, EB3, EB4, and so on. So that in 9 years, we are progressively phasing out the backlog. It's not like you're in the queue, you're waited for 4 years. Oh, now you're in the same status as someone who's coming in. It's not like that. They've actually planned it out in a structured way so that you're not impacted. And then from then on, everyone's on the same level field. Like you like Sanjay said, you come in first, you get out first. As opposed to you come in first, oh, you're from this country, okay, wait, you come in 1,000, you're from another country, you get to go first. And another big thing which I want to address right now is the fact that people say that cheap labor is going to kill the American workforce and stuff. And that annoys me when I see it, right? Because this act actually introduces more checks against companies misusing H-1B talent, because now you've got to post a job on a Department of Labor website, you've got to post it for 30 days, you've got to show that those applicants, you're only taking an H-1B applicant after if no one else has applied and you're not able to find a suitable candidate. If a company has 100 employees, you're not allowed to hire more than 50% of that company as H-1B visa holders.
Wow. Okay.
So you're having a lot of checks. You were supposed to display what the salaries that you're paying to the labor. If it's below a certain requirement or something, they're going to reject it. So gone are the days where you hire someone for like $10 an hour or $15 an hour or whatever it is and undercut that person by giving them by giving them a visa and then removing a citizen out of the way. Because no company in the right mind is going to prefer hiring an H-1B or a visa holder by paying tens and thousands of dollars, going through all these hurdles, as opposed to hiring a citizen who can start work tomorrow.
Exactly.
No company will do that.
The typical cost associated with hiring a person on H-1B is probably $10,000 to $20,000 just in legal fees. Other than companies who might pay for a relocation bonus and all any other perks and benefits or whatever it is. This is just legal. Why would any company want to pay $20,000 more for one person for the same set of skills if they could hire them locally, which obviously just means that they are not finding that locally, and they need to get somebody from outside of the US to help them out with that. And I fully agree on this whole idea of...
It's pretty ironic the things that you're fighting against are the things that actually Eagle Act is going to solve. If it's solved, you're going to make it more difficult for people to hire H-1B holders because of all the checks and balances, right? So if what you're saying is not what the bill or what the bill's intended to change, so might want to think about it when it comes again next year.
I don't know. I hope so, or at least some form that solves some of these problems, because it is getting pretty crazy. Like that, the fact that an entire group of people can be outcast from having the US experience or living the American dream, on the basis of where they come from. It's pretty crazy. Like, I don't know, generations from now it'll be like, oh wow, this is modern day slavery. Like that fact that you have to be tied to your employer, you can't change jobs. It's pretty crazy.
And you still get to do all the fun things citizens do, like pay taxes.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, we pay more taxes. That's what some congressperson from Georgia, I think, said. He commented about Indian Americans, saying they are just around 1% of the US, but they pay 6% of the taxes.
Yeah.
So I mean, the typical Indian American pays 5x the amount of money back to the US government. Yet we are treated like second grade citizens, though. Sounds very similar to things that happened pre 1857. This is just two bills, and we have already spent close to 38 minutes talking about it. And there's not been a lot of comedy or digressions around other things. It's like I said earlier, there's a lot to talk about. And this is just stuff that's happened in the past year in Congress related to immigration. So I mean, it's a big thing. It's the United States Congress. There's a ton of bills and a lot of activity going on. So, and I think both you and I have felt it's important that we have these discussions, pick these out in more detail, so that more people have an understanding about how messy the system is, and maybe help out, put in their word, and call their representatives to make a change, I guess, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like I wanted us to end this by giving you guys something to think about. Like, we need to do our part in being more aware. A huge percentage of us have no clue about what's happening in the Congress. It's not, you don't need to, but it's good if we do. There are a few organizations dedicated to bringing about a change. Immigration Voice is one of them. There's a few more. Follow their progress if you can. Get involved with your local groups. Keep yourself up to date with all the proceedings. Like Sanjay mentioned, reach out and call your state representatives. Share your stories. Inform them about your problems. You might think It might not be much, but all these things go a long way. I feel if we are more united in this cause, I'm pretty optimistic that we can bring about a change for sure.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, that is what a democracy is, right? Like, and the US is one of the best examples of how well a democracy can work. Like, if we were to talk like something about like the labor problems that folks face in Dubai or something like that, they can't go and talk to their representatives and make a change about it. Like, they have to live with it. Like, you're living in a place where this is possible. At least I still feel so. America always has been the land of opportunity, and it's yeah, the ideals that this nation's been built on is fantastic, and I still feel like a lot of, if not the politicians, 99% of the people living here represent that. So if you feel like you're one of those folks like feels that it's important for immigrants to have equal footing like everybody else who lives here, and it's important that you can make a call to your representative or senator and let them know, hey, you know what, I'm not happy with this, do something about it. And believe me, they will do something about it, because they are scared, because end of the day, it's they want your votes, they
Yeah.
want to stay in office, they want to make tons of money. So
Yeah.
they need to do that.
And don't be disheartened if you go to voicemail, because I've been told it happens quite a bit.
Oh, is it? Okay, cool. All
Apparently,
right.
if they hear what you're calling about, they're like, "Oh, it's Eagle Act. Okay, direct voicemail. Oh, it's Relief Act. Direct voicemail." So don't get
Oh.
disheartened. Finish your voicemail, and maybe try again in a bit.
Yeah, whatever, like, but yeah, as immigrants ourselves, we absolutely would appreciate that. If everybody does their part, it's in our regular lives, it can be very easy to be, life is generally very difficult and can be easy to like not bother, just try to survive. But I think occasionally, if you pick up the phone and do your part in helping out others, you're going to get good karma for sure. I definitely believe that.
All right, folks, that's it for this episode. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys learned something. And like always, we appreciate feedback. Do drop us a note if you like this episode. If you did not like this episode, if there's any topics you'd like us to cover in the future, and we look forward to hearing from you.